Hello folks, it is time for some more Hobby Nightmares. If you like what I do, please like the video. It does wonders for me in the old algorithm and make sure that more people can come and watch some Hobby Nightmares. Having a bit of a, shall I say, a downer today, a bit low energy. So, you know, a like always goes a long way to help me read these out in proper style. So, Mads is back with another Hobby Nightmare from her menagerie of Hobby Nightmares, and this one is about somebody called Kyle. So, my next story is about somebody called Kyle the Knight. Okay? I wonder if he's an actual knight. We'll see. Kyle was a soft-spoken and mild-mannered kind of guy. He would usually tend to himself and stay out of people's way. He looked like your standard IT guy, but was stuck somewhere in the 90s. Alright, for those of you who don't know who Mads is, she is a kind lady from previous Hobby Nightmares who's been regaling us of her time in the hobby in her old hobby space, in her old city. So, she had several Hobby Nightmares, and because it was a huge document, I've been reading them out one at a time. So, Kyle was just a normal guy. That is, until he played a Warhammer Fantasy Battle. Once that happened, Kyle would turn into an ultra-competitive monster at the table. Kyle is a Bretonnian player. He was very simple in his wishes though. Kyle loved his peasants, loved his trebuchets, loved his ladies, loved his knights, and above all, Kyle loved to win. Well, if you're a true Bretonnian, you don't like peasants, but yeah, moving on. Kyle would not suffer hearing anything bad about his faction of choice around him. He rode the Bretonnian banner with all the zeal and gusto that a questing knight would have for the Lady of the Lake herself, loudly and expressively so. You would swear that he was right there on the field with his knights riding down to charge into your troops and easily killing them all without any issue, which he would reenact with sound effects to boot whilst at the table, because his knights were just the best, ever. Kyle was the type of person that Games Workshop likely had in mind for when they made the first renditions of Age of Sigmar, where you would get benefits for acting out certain things, like riding an imaginary horse to get benefits on your rolls, etc. Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm still of the opinion that the first edition Age of Sigmar rules, when they first came out, were a troll. I'm still of that opinion. I'm still of the opinion that they disliked the old Warhammer community, the old world community to such an extent, that they made a game specifically to get under their skin and drive them off. I honestly think that. Honestly. Kyle was the type of person... Okay, sorry, I've already read that bit. Kyle was also intensely competitive, yet always seemed to not fully grasp the game. I'm not claiming I knew 6th edition Warhammer fully either at the time, but I was young and actually looking to learn from older people like Kyle, who was in his late 20s at the time. As such, Kyle would at times be called out on a bad rules usage, rolling on full armor saves when he shouldn't, and generally would get quite upset when people actually outplayed him by just using the rules. I'm convinced this wasn't malicious on his part, just poor planning or execution and needing to learn the rules better. What irked me the most about Kyle was that I had always had a poor impression of him, due to his table manners when I was faced against him. He would never ever side with any army that wasn't noble or in a potential alliance with Bretonnia, like the Empire, High Elves, Dwarves and the like. As such, I would only ever play against him with my Orcs and Goblins. That all changed one day when he asked me to ally with him and his own Orcs and Goblins army, which I didn't even know he had, for an upcoming Storm of Chaos event at the local game store. We would be forming an allied tribe to stand against the Empire, Dwarves, Elves, and alongside 2 small Chaos warbands and a Beastmen army. More on them later. It turns out he cobbled together an entire force through trades, second-hand purchases, and gifted models specifically for this event. I got to see an entirely different side of Kyle that day, and he even tried his best to get the job done right, as he really, desperately wanted to win that battle. Suffice to say, We lost. Oh dear. And a week later, Kyle approached me, asking if I wanted to take over his orcs and goblins from him. He told me not to worry, as he would be giving it away to me for free, as I was the only Greenskins player he knew, and he felt like it would be a shame to simply toss them out, as he vowed to never play Greenskins again. I agreed to it, of course, as they were free, and he simply gave me a plastic bag and a big ice cream container full of models, mostly 6th edition starting box orcs, but also a boys' regiment that he hastily put together, shoddy at best and in awkward poses. The few models that were painted looked terrible, and even the hastily glued on gravel was falling off the bases. Most were missing arms, or had fallen off during transportation, or not even put together on the base, save for the rest of the legs and the torso. I didn't know what to think at the time, especially since these were all orc boys and I had already had plenty of them, but I figured I'd best not look a gift horse in the mouth and accepted them anyway. Yeah, well, why wouldn't you? It just so happened that I had a friend who was looking to get started in Warhammer, and he liked the orc models that I already had. So, I made the offer to give him the orcs I had just been given the day before to my friend. He was overjoyed, and even in the unfinished and slightly bothersome state, he was hyped about getting started and getting everything put together. About a month later, Kyle approached me with a young teen, barely 10 years old at best, and Kyle asks me for his models back, because he had just promised them to this young boy. Oh, dude, what? No, mate. No. Now, people like this make my teeth itch. They really do. I bet he throws a wobbler here. I bet he goes mental. Like, how dare you give my models away? Yeah, I bet that's what happens, right? I looked at him stunned, trying to process what he had just asked of me, and told him I had already given those models to my own friend, who wanted to get started in the hobby. Yeah, let me ask you a question. What would Kyle have done if you'd have painted these up as your own models and spent loads of time on them? Would he have demanded them back? No, you gave them to me. Go swivel. Sorry. Kyle looked like he had just short-circuited, and as if he was just trying to figure out what I was telling him was the truth or not. Then he repeated that he had promised them to the kid next to him. The child next to him was looking towards me and Kyle with an expression that I can only describe as between sadness and extreme awkwardness. I once again told him that I no longer owned those models, and added that he really should not promise things to people if he had already given them away freely. I would have been open to giving them back to him, but I had hoped that he would check with me first if I even still had them or not. The very idea had never even occurred to Kyle, and I was once again in a position where I felt like rolling up into a ball and dying on the spot. I will never forget that poor child's face as long as I live, though thankfully he ended up staying at the local game store for about a year with his own army of choice, however small it was, Skaven I think. I can take some solace in the fact that he at least managed to play with something other than Kyle's hand-me-downs. 6 or so years after, I had already left the local game store. And my friend got in touch with me, saying he was doing a clean-up of his house before moving, and they'd found the models I gave him way back when. He asked if it was okay to give them back to me, so he did, and lo and behold, they were still in the same plastic bag and ice cream container. I left them on a shelf for the next few years before stumbling upon them again, reliving the entire saga with Kyle and that young boy in my head before deciding that I would put an end to that story once and for all. I spent a month or so fixing up those models, cleaning off all of the gravel and shoddy paint, snapping off and sawing off the arms, getting rid of tabs and mould lines, adding spare shields where needed, and replacing broken parts with things from my own bits box. Hand painting the banner and putting actual terrain and uniformity into the unit. They now stand proud among my army, and I've named these boys the Misfits in honour of their history. That is so cool, man. That is really, really cool. I love hobby nightmares like that. They show your time through the hobby in different ways. I love it. Absolutely love it. Anyway, moving on. Wookie says, "Hi North, for the purposes of anonymity, call me Wookie, no problem. I had been around the hobby since Dark Vengeance, and the universe of 40k has always been there as comedic relief or escape from my own real-world issues." Yeah, Dark Vengeance was 7th edition, wasn't it? Yeah, 7th edition. In my last year of school, I shunned the hobby in believing I was older now and simply shouldn't be around the hobby at that age. Why would a 6'5" rugby player be painting Space Marines? Around 2 years ago, I ended up going to university. I'm still here, but my own environment allowed me to fully dive back into Warhammer. It was great, at least for the first year or two. I slowly built up 1000 points for Beastmen, Krieg, and Slaaneshi Chaos Space Marines and Tau. I painted and began to play, going from beginners to regular, as I hadn't played since Dark Vengeance. However, here is where the store turned me off from ever playing there again. I first began to get very annoyed with the competitive nature of some players, but this is remedied by sucking up and realising that the Eldar list in front of you is tailor-made to ruin the guard you have spent hours painting. My Beasts of Chaos were not long for this world, as Games Workshop took them behind the shed. I took this as just an unlucky choice of army, and that was that. Well, dude, you got more staying power than most, because most would have gone like, what, this army I just bought is no longer a thing? Cheers. Nah, I think I'm done. I think I'll leave, thank you. A lot of people I know with the Imperial Agents Codex at the end of 7th edition left the hobby altogether, when Games Workshop just nuked the army from the next edition. The Games Workshop store put out an announcement saying that all of their standard play nights were being replaced. I and others were confused and just annoyed that we were being pushed out. Despite having a thriving store, they still felt the need to boot us out. What's worse, there were those bootlicking us as soon as the announcement came out. The regular play was going to be replaced by Kill Team and other small game types. The tournament play is the only 40k allowed in the store. For preference, I don't go to Games Workshop every week. I go to a Muay Thai gym near me that has quite literally saved my life after I went through a rather rough bout of mental instability. However, one of the guys who started playing with me loves it as it is his escape. He has told me how he doesn't have a clue what he is going to do now, and that space was a haven for him. Yeah, this is how Games Workshops go. They chase the crowd that gives them the most money, or not the most money sometimes, just the easiest ones to placate. I don't know, man. I don't know. As for me, I think this was the final straw. Unlike a lot of those in the hobby, I have some follow-through. I can't in good conscience support a company that has ruined an amazing part of my week. I've been spending more time in the gym and in my uni book staying on top of my studies. It saddens me greatly that this is how I am leaving a massive interest of mine, but if I am to boycott something, I will. The hobby has become so far detached from some escapism and many laughs into a revolving carousel of decisions that repeatedly hurt the consumer, at least in my eyes. As a lesson to all my fellow hobbyists, you can't allow yourself to become a whale. Eventually the buck stops, and for me, this is it. I'll stay tapped into the universe, but it's simply just no longer acceptable. Enjoy when you can roll dice freely, as it is rare and precious, but don't allow yourself to become a money punching bag that the company goes to when they need their new Porsche. I have nothing but love for the hobby, but for the foreseeable future, I can only think of doing private play with the mates at their houses, as Games Workshop has priced me out. Dude, go to 3D printing. Go to 3D printing. You know what to do. Do OPR and 3D printing. Job done. In a way, it has begun to give me some kind of freedom, as now my scope of what minis I want to paint has greatly expanded. As a massive fan of the Fallout series, I have begun looking at the Fallout tabletop game, and as an even bigger Star Wars fan, I have begun painting up some Star Wars Legion minis. The new freedom from this has made me think more logically and caused me to become one, more financially stable, but also a bit more at peace. Now I don't have to worry about what kind of boneheaded decision Games Workshop is going to make next to drive me away. You've solved your problem, mate. I didn't even need to say anything. You've solved your problem. I love Muay Thai, and it has proved the time apart from the world I was getting from Warhammer. Sorry, it has provided the time apart from the world I was getting from Warhammer. I honestly believe the creative spirit of 40k is slowly dying, and this is becoming more and more evident as time goes on. For me, I will cherish the time I had with the hobby, and may continue to play with my friends, but this is the end of the line, at least for me. If you enjoy the current state of Games Workshop, that's good for you. However, the spirit of the hobby, for me, is dying. As my final adage, all I can say is that when the time passes, don't hold on for dear life. Accept that it has passed, and nurture what you have, as the time you spend holding on will only embitter you to the hobby. Maybe I'll write back in time with the hob. Sorry, maybe I will write back in with the time a hobbyist threatened me over a game against his Tau. Until then, much love, and keep giving out reasoned rants like the one on Valrak switching stances. Much love. Yeah, I mean, I've mentioned that a few times. Valrak's a good guy. Valrak is a good guy. And I stand by what I said, and that's all I'll say on that one. But yeah, he's a top man. So, Bon says, "Hello North, please call me Bon. I apologise about formatting as my laptop is in a service shop. As such, I am writing this on my phone. Alright. I'm writing in about my personal view of the hobby, especially the most deterring factor, prices and their effect on hobbyists, and how this has turned into a bit of a nightmare for me, and the joy, but also drain, it's taken on me. I'd like to start with 10th edition's rules. With someone like me, who's going to college and working a labour job, the rules are great for my situation, but even as an AdMech player. I will also note, most of the people in my club are dads, or dads who work a lot, or in full-time or college students, and we all do our best to get in a game a month, if that. I feel we are the audience that 10th edition was aimed at. I don't. If you're an AdMech player, 10th edition was not aimed at you. Your codex is trash. Simple. It was not aimed at you. Sorry. Your codex is really hard to play, and it is really underpowered against everything else in the game. At least from what my friend who's an AdMech player has been telling me anyway. And when I played against him with vanilla Space Marines, I just wiped the floor with him. I wasn't even trying. It was just like his army beat itself. That's how bad the AdMech were. His army beat itself. I don't know, man. Secondly, please vote with your wallet. I don't see Games Workshop sinking this hobby by not dropping prices eventually. And to help, I have a simple trick. I don't worry about fear of missing out boxes. Why worry about a chance to save money? The next part I had to learn... Dude, I can tell you wrote this on your phone. It's all over the place. The next part I had to learn this the hard way. Budget below your hobby means. I give myself $10 a week for Warhammer. That's it. I bought Warhammer from eBay, paints, gunpla, comics, games, fishing, and other vices are completely separate from Warhammer. I scoured eBay for a few months and nabbed a Tech Priest Dominus and one Iron Strider and 10 new Scutari on sprue for about $80 in all, compared to $168 MSRP. This took about a month, but saved me at $80. Another example is picking up Skaven Tide Stormcast for at least the Stormcast half of it for $95 on eBay. And if the maths didn't add up, that's because I saved up this Warhammer budget over the summer. That's a good way to do it, man. That is a good way to do it. Little by little, save it up, little by little, and don't rely on Games Workshop. If you want to, have your hobby to the point where you're like, I don't need to worry about what Games Workshop do, I don't need to worry about what models they bring out or what rules they change, go to one-page rules and use 3D printing and eBay. Cut them out entirely. Cut them out entirely. If you're sick of it, like I am. This next part is a bit heavy, but still related. After a stay at the hospital for attempting to self-delete last winter, I found new purpose. Well, I'm really sorry to hear that, man. I'm really sorry to hear that. It always irks me when a young man comes on and talks about this kind of stuff, because I know full well how do I put this? That society's failed you. Do you know what I mean? I know society has told you we don't want you here anymore. For the last 10 years, at least. Society has said, we don't need men. We don't want men. And is it any sort of surprise that a young man decides, okay, if you don't want me, and life keeps beating me down, I'll just get myself out of the gene pool. Because men are very, very, very logical. Men are very logical. And if a man comes to this conclusion, that means his own internal logic has said, I shouldn't be here anymore. That is as much mental illness, yes, but it's society too. It's society too. I'm telling you now, dude. It really does irk me whenever I hear about this kind of stuff. Anyway, I've worked hard and earned a nice raise at my job. I've gotten my grade point average up to about a B average. That's 3.0. I paid for a state park pass and taken my good girl on walks recently. Hopefully you mean a dog, or not. You're not. That's not how you refer to your missus. I painted a bunch of models from the pile of shame, as well as helped my brother with bills and around the house, as due to financial limits and the medical bill, plus back-to-back car trouble and temporary loss of health insurance. I was forced to move home last year. I don't know how people can live without shame moving home at 20. Dude, why? Why? Dude, stop this. Stop this. I lived at my mother's house when I was in my late 20s to early 30s. Alright? Everyone's in the same boat. Don't crucify yourself like this. There's no shame in it, dude. No shame in it. The shame is in the housing market. That's where the shame is. The renting culture. The really wealthy people buying several houses and then never living in any of them. Right? That's the shame. The shame isn't on you. And you know me. I'm not the kind of person who blows smoke up your backside. I'll tell you how it is. If you're screwing up, I'll tell you. And you're not. Right? The housing market is screwed. That's not your fault. Take shame for things that you are supposed to take shame for. This isn't one of them. I'm telling you now. Alright. With the plan to move out in spring 2025, I've been saving like crazy, and Warhammer is on the back burner. Well, dude, you're making a sensible decision. You're a grown man, you're an adult, and you're absolutely killing it in life. You're doing well. Only take guilt for things that you're owed to take guilt for. Living with your brother isn't one of them, alright? So, why is the above paragraph related to this nightmare? Well, Games Workshop's prices. As I rejoin my club and work towards 2,000 points of AdMech, the price has been harder and harder than finding time to play, getting minis painted, or even learning all the great new AdMech rules overall. And North, I see it in others too. Okay. At my friendly local game store, the fear of missing out / Battle Force boxes line the walls. For factions, people are there to play. Combat patrols still sit from when they were first hauled in. The new Sisters of Battle box, plus the Recruit box, is still there from the Tau Codex. If people aren't buying the discount boxes and the starter boxes, then the hobby is sinking. I see new people join, but about half of them, if not more, never stick around. Well, this is happening, dude. I know I've stopped reading again. I'm really sorry, guys, but this is happening. Games Workshop are the little boy who cried wolf. They really are. They're the little boy who cried wolf. One too many times, they've told you, get this box set before it sells out. Get this box set before it sells out. Get it before it sells out. And they've ridden that narrative because they want you to go out and buy the box when they want you to. And for a few years there, boxes were always selling out and nobody could get their hands on them. So Games Workshop were getting what they wanted. They were getting their money, and screw you for not buying the box set when they tell you to. But now, so many people were going without the box sets that they've gone, do you know what, I'm not even going to bother. I'm not even going to bother. And so now we're seeing box sets left on shelves because nobody thinks they can actually get a hold of them anyway, so why even bother? It was always going to happen. It was going to bite them in the wallet eventually, and I'm glad it is. I don't think Warhammer will die, but I do know Games Workshop will suffer the consequences of its actions within the next 2 years. Stocks will drop. The next Leviathan starter equivalent will sell shelves overstocked just like Skaven Tide, and investors will feel it as they should. The community will shrink, new fans will diminish, and the whales/meta chasers will feel so burned they'll actually never return, leaving only casual Andes like me who buy a new set from Shelf Kit 1 to 3 times a year, and kids playing with their own rules on the kitchen table, and dads with a few beers playing older editions left. That's it. And casual clubs like mine. Hopefully, Games Workshop will see its remaining core audience and adjust to fit that bill. If prices were to drop, I wouldn't be mad. I was the idiot who played that monthly game at one point, and others shouldn't suffer the same. To end this little nightmare, the short of it is most people can't afford or are pushed away by prices. Whilst I build my savings up from nothing, and even as I'm getting back on my feet, I can afford Warhammer as well as my other hobbies. I just have to be modest and careful about where I throw my money. Throw in a gunplay this month and some fishing lures, as well as 2 comics, about $55, and next month add some Army Painter Fanatics paints, a comic, and an eBay purchase for Warhammer. That's $60. Okay, cool. Do you think the prices would be this high if... sorry. Oh, this is gibberish at the end here. Finally, I'm going to have to skip that, dude. I don't know what you're saying. Finally, apologies for any formatting issues. Here's a dog picture as well as some recent models I've completed. Her name is Brindle, and she just turned 11. And there's a reason we call him Scamrack North. Ah, no, I'm not doing this. As a self-proclaimed Valrak fan, you as well know I should know this. No, I don't. I don't agree. This isn't pile-on Valrak time, alright? I like Valrak. He's a good YouTuber. He just has a lot of passion for this hobby, and I won't have a go at him for that, alright? So, I'm going to strike that from the record, my friend. You can have your opinion, but I don't think that's true, alright? Alright. So, let's have a look at your dog here. That's what everyone wants to see. Very nice. Oh, lovely little dog. And of course, some models. Oh, that's a big one. That's what she said. There we go. Down there, and down there. Very nice. Nicely painted models. And a lovely dog. For a lovely end to the episode. Thanks for watching, folks. I love you all long time. I will speak to you very, 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 very soon for some more Hobby Nightmares. And I will leave you there. I will see you tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye now.